This is Montreal Now with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall. CJAD 800.
That is James Mennie. He is over at the Montreal Gazette. Jim, just before we get into it, I did want to mention we had an interview with Roch Voisin earlier this afternoon, and I found a picture that I had done an interview with him from like 20 years ago. So I posted it on Instagram. Natasha, just let me know. What did I do?
You put Rich Voisin instead of Roch Voisin, and I was like, well, he is rich, so I mean, it's partially accurate.
So that's spell check, apparently. The I and the O are right next to each other. It assumed I was writing Rich, not Roch, so I apologize to Roch Voisin.
Rich Roch
If
Voisin.
he's rich, that's fine. Mm-hmm. Jim, let's begin by talking about what's going on at Maisonneuve Rosemont. We heard, of course, I guess a little earlier. We're going to play that later on as well. Christian Dubé talking about it, but I don't ever remember something like this happening before as well, where an entire nursing staff in the ER threatening to walk off the job.
We've had situations where there have been sit-ins, where there have been sort of work slowdowns. We've had situations even before the advent of this government that saw nurses going online and basically saying, I'm ready to jump out a window. I mean, people were having meltdowns. And it was, it's terrible, it's this, it's that, and we got to do something about this. Of course, absolutely nothing whatsoever was done. And now we're seeing this come to a head at Maisonneuve Rosemont. We had a situation today. The denouement of all this is, of course, that the head, I guess the department head of the emergency room has been, how can I put it delicately, been transferred to other duties because this is what sparked the mutiny last night. They had to shut down the ER. Basically, it was a work action. It was a sit-in, and they were warning people, stay away. Go to another hospital. And if this individual was still in power. As of tomorrow, 100 nurses at that hospital said, we're out of here. We're resigning. That's it. We're done. Now, up until now, Christian Dubé has been sort of like musing publicly saying, I don't understand what's going on here. Why is it that we have problems at Maisonneuve Rosemont? We don't have problems in other hospitals. And which is true insofar as it goes, we don't have other problems at the same time, but we've had similar problems up in the Saguenay. We've had similar problems out on the South Shore. And there is a consensus in the nursing profession that things are getting worse. They're not getting better. And the idea, this absolute scandalous, oft-repeated lie that the provincial government is going to tackle the issue of mandatory overtime, which is at the very center of this, which is what is driving away experienced health professionals, either in the private sector or another jurisdiction. They just keep booting this around. And it seems that, to a certain extent, they were saying, we want to decentralize the whole healthcare system. Well, that seems to be what's going on right now, because the issue seems to be managers who either don't know how to make a work schedule or don't know how to staff their hospitals are turning around and telling people with zero notice that, no, sorry, you got to stay. Sorry, we have to stay, and you absolutely are obliged to stay. And this is what's driving people crazy, because on the other hand, I would assume that most people get into healthcare and nursing because they want to help people. So if the place is flooded, you're not going to turn around as tough as it is for you as a parent or as a spouse or as someone who just wants to live their life. To say, all of a sudden, no, I have to stay at work for maybe another 4 hours. But if you turn around and the ER is packed, it perhaps goes against your DNA to walk away from that. But the fact is, this government is playing, as far as I'm concerned, Russian roulette with the healthcare system, because sooner or later, you're going to see this spread, maybe not all at once, but piece by piece across this province. And with every time that happens, we're seeing that we are losing professionals to the private sector, to the detriment of the public sector. Meanwhile, there are other factors that are prevalent in all sectors of industry and endeavor in Quebec, the labor shortage, the inability of people to actually sort of like either get to work or confront all kinds of other challenges. It's not a very promising future. And honestly, I think Christian Dubé, I'm not blaming him for this because this predates him by at least 30 years, but he's going to have to do more than, adopt his nice, soothing voice and say, don't worry, ça va bien aller. It ain't aller and bien at all. Until the government confronts the reality that people's lives on both sides of the service counter in hospitals are at risk, this problem is simply going to get worse and worse.
So we missed Christian Dubé, spoke to the press earlier. And I mean, we understand the crux of it is they want this manager fired, right? And from what I understand, we couldn't listen in, but we've got some clips we're going to play a little later in the show. They've hired an outside mediator to try and fix
They're trying to get a conciliator to basically get, at least the nurses calmed down, although they have every reason right now to lose it, given the way they've been treated. The manager in question has not been fired, but as I said earlier, they've been transferred to other duties. So that may have been a real sticking point there. But think about that for a second.
Yeah.
If you have, what the heck is going on? But over and above all the other things that you have to deal with if you're a nurse on shift, that you and your mates will mutiny, and I can't think of another word for it, because of, this particular, Captain Bly or Captain Queeg or whatever you want to call him or her. There's something very wrong with that picture. This should not be happening in the 21st century in Quebec.
Also transferring to another position. Like, okay, they want this person let go, fine. They've been moved to another role. But the next person that is going to come in is going to be facing the same situation and still probably be asking them to do, obligatory overtime. So
exactly. That's why. This is all to a certain extent just, I hate to use it, but it's theater. It's political theater.
Yeah.
And, okay, we're going to try and get this dealt with, much in the same way as I say, Mr. Dubé was suggesting this is perhaps a problem unique to Maisonneuve-Rosemont. It is not.
No.
But, Jim, what about this setting a precedent, though, Jim? This sets a precedent. The minister steps in and wants to sort of appease the nurses here. Isn't it just easier to walk in and take that manager off the job and assign her or him somewhere else?
Well, this is the first thing that they've done, but it goes beyond, as Natasha said, if this manager, and I suspect there may have been some personal animus here, and I don't know that for a fact, but I get the feeling that that's part of the equation here. But if the replacement is faced with the same guidelines, it's faced with the same template as his or her predecessor, it's only a matter of time until this happens again.
Right.
And let's face it, mandatory overtime seems to be inevitable in Quebec. How can I put it? Under the following conditions, wherever sick people show up. So there you go.
Yeah. All right, let's move from a broken medical healthcare system to a broken justice system, Jim, because we found out today there will in fact be an inquest into the death of that inmate at Bordeaux jail. What's this telling us?
Well, here's the thing. An inquest is a very specific kind of animal. It is held to determine the cause and circumstances of death. It does not assign blame, and it is, if it reaches its mandate, it will be able to provide recommendations on how to keep such things from recurring. What we know for a fact is that in the case of this 21-year-old man, he had been cut loose from custody. He'd made bail the day before. However, he wasn't released. He and at least two other people were not released. They were being held illegally, which some people may just shrug, whatever. No. When you've got that situation, when people are in jail who are not supposed to be in jail, and who knows why, did the message not get through? I mean, the courts are theoretically in contact with detention centers, with what we call jails in Quebec. That didn't happen. The entire intervention of the guards has got to have, it's got to be looked at, the level of training, the level of the situation, what the state of mind, which is very, very important, what the state of the mind of the guards were. But here's the thing. This inquest, while it's focusing on the death of this man, cannot help but also take a look at the causes and circumstances as to why the justice system is, as far as I'm concerned, just as big a shambles as the healthcare system. It cannot ignore that. And the fact is, fate can see me or you or any of our listeners suddenly subject to either of those systems. So enough with that seems to be the way it is. That's the way things happen. It's the system. It's too bad. That's got to stop. The idea, I'm all in favor of increasing hydro capacity by 50%, but I'm also in favor of having a healthcare system that works and a judicial system where I don't run the risk of getting killed because I was supposed to be out of jail 24 hours earlier. These are fundamental obscenities in systems that are supposed to help us, and they're not happening. So whether it's Francois Legault having a fireside chat and explaining how this won't happen again, whether it's, Christian Dubé assuring us it won't happen or actually detailing how there will no longer be mandatory overtime, although don't hold your breath. I think we have no reason whatsoever to take pride in anything else that is going on in this province until these two fundamental, essential services at least work normally as opposed to malfunction constantly.
Hear, hear.
James Mennie, the Montreal Gazette. Thank you, Jim.
Adam, Matt.